Hello and welcome. I'm Marie-Nicole, and today's video, which I'm recording for my Artisanal Living playlist, is all about the dilemma of downsizing. Now, I'm an artisan, which is why I started this Artisanal Living playlist, but I'm also a podcaster and a coach, and I just wanted to actually share this process, not because I have all the answers, because I'm going through it myself, but because I wanted to actually one, hear from you if this is something that you have been through, and two, also to just share the journey with you of what it is like to be selling a property that, is a couple of acres with two sheds on it and a house that I've been living in for the last 10 years. And to be downsizing now as a single mum for the last 3 years, going through the process of working out what is essential and what is important to me and what it is I can let go of. Now, as an artisan, I have found this process to be challenging when it comes to the artisanal aspect. There are elements of things in the house that I have very easily been able to move on straight away. And this has been a process for the last 3 years of my marriage ending 3 years ago. And it's only been this year that we've gone through the process of actually doing our property settlement, selling the property and separating financially completely. So it has been a journey. The first year of becoming single, I also had a commercial space, which was a large commercial space of 125 square meters, which was an integrated retail store with workshop, my atelier and workshop space that I hosted events and workshops in, based on other creatives as well. So it was a big space. And so a lot of what is back here in my shed is from that shop. But I did go through the process of moving on a lot of things from the commercial space when I closed it. And that was a pretty massive process in itself. However, it was a lot of what I moved on were things that I actually brought into that space. Before I opened the commercial space, I already had this studio shed, which is a double door garage. We have two on the property, and one is actually the garage and garden shed, and the other one is my artisanal workspace. And my children used to come out here after school and hang out. So we did have it set up for them to use as a play space as well. And when I opened my commercial space, everything I had in here went into the commercial space, and then I added more to fill out the needs of that space furniture wise. But it wasn't as probably as challenging to go from closing that to back here because I knew the space that I had to work with. I knew what I was coming into. Whereas this way, going from having my established workspace and home and moving into I don't know what. I have not got a location that I've got a location I am working towards relocating to, but I don't actually have a physical home that I'm moving into that I know of. So there may be a couple of stages in between a location that I will call more my permanent residence. And so I'm going through this process of decluttering, and it's really challenging. So I thought I would do a video on this to share the journey with you, especially if you're an artisan. You will understand that this is not about the challenge of being a hoarder. I'm actually not a hoarder. I hold on to things that I value, that I think are worth holding on to and can be useful. But I also move things on very easily that I just don't see any value in or think will be useful long term. Now, before I continue, I just want to go and pour my cacao, which is heating up on my fireplace over here. And I've been enjoying this process of making my cacao on not only the fireplace out here, but also the fireplace inside the house, rather than actually using the stove. And it's been a beautiful, beautiful way of preparing my cacao. And I'm just going to put some rose sprinkles, dried rose petals on it. And so, as I was saying, I have actually done the decluttering or the downsizing process, going from a commercial space back into my studio shed. But this time around, going from my studio shed and home to I don't know where is a whole other story. And The other day, I took behind me here is this beautiful grandpa chair that I have had for nearly 30 years now. It might be 27 years ago that I bought it. And at the time, I was a portrait photographer and I was photographing predominantly ballroom and Latin dancers. It was not necessarily the setup where it was all in studio lights and indoors. I used to photograph them out on location with a portable stereo with music playing, and I would get them to dance and I would capture their movements, and they would be out of costume and they'd be more wearing free flowing fabrics or garments that just enabled the movement to be captured. And this chair, soon after I bought it, I took it down to, I'm pretty sure it was Bronte Beach. We carried it down the cliff onto the beach with a large mirror and did a portrait shoot down there of two dancers, and it was just magical. And the chair was in really good order when I first got the chair. It is an antique and it is now starting to fall apart, as in the webbing. It's really only the webbing that's the issue, and the springs are coming out of the bottom of it. So I don't know if you can see, but underneath it is actually a display album that I used to have for a wedding album. When I ran my photography business and I had display albums, I used to use these beautiful big albums, and some of them had timber covers. I did magazine style albums. And when I first started the business, I was actually a film photographer, and then I turned into a digital photographer as soon as I was able to. Pretty much in the first couple of years, I became a digital photographer. And so, anyway, I've got this big display album that's holding up the springs so that they don't pop out of the bottom of the chair. And I took the chair outside to sit in the sun the other day. It was one of those, we have had temperatures of a morning that have been like -6 degrees Celsius, and it's been very frosty and cold. And so there are days where it's just bone chilling. And once I get cold to the bone, it's very hard to warm up again. And especially if it's a day where it's foggy and frosty and the fog doesn't lift for a long time, then it can be very difficult to actually warm up. Even the fireplace is a great way to do that, but the sun is even better. And so I was thawing out this day, and I took the grandpa chair and I sat outside the sheds, which is a nice sheltered location because I'm actually up on a hill which is western facing, and northwestern is our aspect. And the breeze coming up the hill can be quite chilly on a cold day. And so between the two sheds is a really nice sheltered spot. So I was sitting out there on this beautiful grandpa chair. I had to drag the photo album out there with it, put it under the chair to hold the springs in place, and then I just sat there and I journaled and read and just wrapped myself in a llama poncho and just thawed out and let my body warm to the core, which was beautiful. But I was thinking about the dilemma of downsizing and how things like this chair, I don't know what I'm moving into, but I know I don't want to move that chair on. I want to hold on to that chair. And I had always had the intention of restoring it. And actually, I wanted to recover it, but I really like the color. And I've done a lot of recovering of furniture over the years. I used to do that quite regularly. And I actually, to the point where I have got books on furniture restoration and then furniture upholstery and repair. And I've had these books for over 25 years. And part of that, the reason for having these books is to be able to fix up items like the grandpa chair and the swing back chairs that I have all throughout the house. I used to actually restore furniture and paint it, and when I moved out of photography, I went into screen printing, and I would hand cut, stencil cut with a scalpel, filigree patterns, and then I would print a repeat pattern on linen and reupholster furniture with that linen. And so this is a part of who I am as an artisan is, I'm constantly learning new skills, applying them, and building on the skills. So my photography moved with me into my artisanal work and capturing the photos of the designs that I'd made and the products that I made for my online store, and then moving my artisanal work into a commercial space, and my photography followed me into that as well. And so I've got gear I don't have a full professional kit like I used to when I was a full-time professional photographer, but I do actually take those skills forward with me. So when I talk about being multifaceted, and which I have in other videos talked about being multifaceted and a multi-passionate designer, maker, podcast, content creator for YouTube, like all of these things make me multifaceted, but it doesn't mean that I have necessarily let go of skills. I've just layered them and built on them. And so when it comes to think, before I continue, just going to take a sip of my cacao, sitting here, smelling it, going, ah, oh, so beautiful. And this beautiful handmade cup that a friend gave me, which has a crescent moon on it. Just love it. It's my cacao cup. So while I was sitting out there on my beautiful grandpa chair, soaking up the sun's warmth, I was thinking about this dilemma of being an artisan and downsizing a living space. I was watching a YouTube channel podcast with someone who was an entrepreneur, and they were reducing all of their material possessions down to a backpack, and they were quite a wealthy entrepreneur, and they were being interviewed by someone, and they were talking about reducing their goods down to a backpack and traveling and just living out of a backpack. Now, when I first became a single mum, and I'm now at the point where my youngest son is almost ready to become independent, so I'll become an empty nester very soon. And so I was thinking, well, maybe I could live on the road, and once he finds his feet and independence and we move out of this place, I could become a gypsy. And I would joke around with my boys saying I'll be a gypsy at 50. And so I started playing with the idea of just creating items on a small scale, making things out of copper wire, which a friend had given me a whole lot of copper wire. And so I started experimenting with that. And I thought, well, if I'm traveling on the road and I want to just make small scale items, at least I will be able to do it with just small tools. And that, while it's a beautiful experience and I've enjoyed making with the copper wire, I just don't think I could reduce everything down to just a small handmaker's kit. I was thinking, I don't know that I can because I do love to actually restore furniture, to build things. And, I make my kangaroo vest requires a industrial machine, and even my kangaroo bags I make with an industrial machine. But even if I wasn't making it commercially, I was thinking about the fact that I do make things for our everyday living experience constantly. Like, even though now I don't promote and sell duffel bags that I've made out of old blankets, which were old blankets and kangaroo leather, my youngest son has one. And he uses it all the time when he goes away overnight, or he's about to go away for a week on holiday, and he'll take his duffel bag. And my eldest son, I've made a repurposed blanket guitar case. His guitar case actually was the first one I ever made as a 3/4 guitar. And then when he got a steel string guitar, I made one for him for the new guitar, and he still uses it. And I often give people gifts that I make myself, and utilizing the tools and the skills that I have actually acquired over many years in my artisanal profession. And so when I think about that, it's not so much about minimalism being about reducing things down to not needing anything. So this entrepreneur was talking about how if he needs clothes, he knows that where he's going, he could buy clothes. And yes, that's true. You can buy anything anywhere. Although, as a designer and maker myself, who has been making her own clothes since I was in primary school, I actually really do value the quality of material and the design to be something that is layerable and something that is timeless, that I know is easy for me to wear, and the quality of fabric that actually breathes, allows my skin to breathe and not become sweaty. I know that there are not chemicals used in the fabrics that I work with that are irritant to the skin. And I have made and sold clothes for customers for many years. And so I actually value quality crafted, timeless pieces that can make up a capsule wardrobe. That means that you move through your day effortlessly. I recently actually did a video series here in the shed in the freezing cold, which is based on the three essential layerable items that I think are essential to have in your capsule wardrobe. And they're items that I have used myself, not only used myself, but also sold to numerous customers over many years and seen it work on a range of different physiques. And so, as a female whose body changes as we go through our life's journey, going from maiden to mother to wild wise woman to crone, our bodies expand and contract significantly more than what a man's body does generally over their lifetime. So, having a wardrobe that is supportive to our everyday living experience and allows us to move through our days effortlessly with confidence, I think is really valuable. So I actually would not want to rely on wherever I turn up to try and find clothes that I can get to put on my back, because I would want to know that those clothes, one, were made ethically and were environmentally sustainable in their production and also work for me. So if you're interested in that tutorial series, I'll put a link to that in the show notes, because I've actually given instructions on how to construct bias trim as well as these three designs that I wear and have worked with for many years. And I think that they're valuable designs to have in your wardrobe. So that is one thing. But going back to being an artisan, it is not about acquiring stuff. It is not just about, I mean, for me personally, as an artisan, almost everything I have in my home is either something that I've made or friends have made or I've been gifted, even to the point of the artworks in our house. I have pastel drawings from when I first did my Bachelor of Arts in Visual Arts and Design, and that was from 27 years ago. I still have artworks on the walls from my exhibition. Those artworks were two pieces in particular that when I was doing my university degree in visual arts and design, I was at a private institution, which was a religious institution. And I actually, for my major works, did life drawing, which was not allowed. It was actually not allowed according to the religion. I am no longer a part of that religion, but that's what I was associated with when I was growing up, and even throughout my adulthood. Like my in-laws were actually of the same religion, and funnily enough, the security guard who used to do the night shift around campus um, was actually married to one of my former husband's aunties. And at a Christmas gathering, he was talking about this artwork in the art rooms that was, inappropriate. There was nudes being drawn in someone's studio, and that was actually my studio. So I found that very funny. I did tell them that was my artwork. But to be able to do those nudes, I actually had to go to an art school, which was about an hour and a bit drive away, where they used to run life drawing classes, and I would go there of a night time and do my actual life drawing, because it was not allowed on campus for there to be a nude person. And so our life drawing classes were based on someone wearing a bathing suit, and it just didn't cut it for me. I did human landscapes. I was not so much about the genitalia of anyone. I did mainly female forms, and it was really about the landscape aspect of the female form. And I wanted to do that as my final exhibition, but I wasn't allowed to. It ended up going to the board, and I wasn't allowed to put those pieces in, even though you could barely tell it was actually a human, because I was focused on areas and the landscape aspect of the body. But that doesn't matter. In the end, I did faces as my final exhibition, and the pieces that I have hanging up in the house are from that exhibition, because I did faces. And there were two in particular that I absolutely love, and one which is of a female, and she's got her arm up and she's leaning back and she's absorbing the warmth of the sun. and it's all in orange, and it looks like a painting, but it's actually a pastel drawing. And the other one is more the shadow side of life. And it was a bald black man that is, quite intense, not as painterly in the finish. It does more look like a pastel drawing, but still his face just comes out of this pastel drawing. And I really love this shadow element and the light element. And it, even at the time, I was not necessarily into spirituality the way that I am now. I still felt like life had its shadow side and light side, and that's just the contrast of living. So that's what I was trying to represent in those drawings. And I still have them, and I always hang the bald black man. I always hang that picture in an area of a room that is more of the darker part of the room, and the one of the female I hang somewhere where it's illuminated and vibrant, and it captures the daylight. So that, these are special pieces that I do not want to move on. However, I have decided that my photography award prints, which I still have some of them framed up in the walls. I do have a portfolio of all of my award prints, of the original prints. And I was thinking about, what do I do with those? Like, do I keep carting them around? Even though I do have the actual prints in a book of the year that they were awarded, the AIPP, the Australian Institute of Professional Photographers, put out a book every year of all the award prints. And so I'd still have those books, but the actual prints, I don't know if I need to carry those around anymore. And so I was trying to work out what to do with them. And I've decided that potentially I would actually burn them, because the people who were in those prints, I couldn't donate them, because I don't think it's fair on the people that are in them to give away their portraits, because these portraits were either of someone's portrait photography, portrait photo shoot, or their wedding, or their pre-wedding, like engagement shoot. And so I was really contemplating what is the most appropriate thing to do with that. And so, when I closed my photography business, I contacted everyone and let them know that their negatives were available, or CDs, files, if they didn't get. I mean, most of the packages that I had, people got their CDs with their package anyway. But as a photographer, I was legally obliged, and I had an agreement with my clients that I would hold on to them for, I think it was 7 or 10 years after their photos that were after the original photos were taken. And I closed my photography business like 18 years ago now. And I still carted a lot of those negatives that were left over around, and recently have started burning them, because I don't want them to end up in other people's hands. And it's just not fair on people to have their portraits end up somewhere else. Um, so anyway, that might be contentious for some people to hear, that I'm planning to burn my prints and the remnants of my photography client files, but it is going to be something that I'll do, as I'm planning to do it around the full moon, and do it as a release ceremony. And I also thought I would video the prints, because I do have the copyright to the images since I took them. And I do have agreements with all the clients, that signed agreements that say the actual artwork right is mine, their image right is there. So I can't sell on their image to someone else. But I was actually thinking it would be a really lovely thing to actually do a video of each of the prints, and before I burn them, and just share them through a video. And also for my children. I mean, the books, if something happens to the books that have my award prints in them, then that will disappear. But I plan to hold on to the books. But anyway, plan to do a video, and I'll share that with you here too, so you can see a part of that journey and process, and that background aspect of, the artisan's journey through life. And what we get to a point, like I'm 50, we get to a point where we can't hold on to everything forever. And I actually really don't want to leave so much stuff behind that my kids have to go through and then decide what to do with it. And they're going to have their own things that they're going to want to hold on to. So they don't need to hold on to mine as well. And I know some people become very sentimental about items from the grandparents and the great grandparents, but there's only so much we can hold on to and move around with. And I don't even know where I'm going to live next. So, how do I not only take what I need, but take what I think others might like in the future? It is quite a dilemma. So, which is why I thought I would share this thought process with you here. If it is something that you yourself have struggled with in the past, how do you let go, and what do you not let go of, or what have you let go of that you regretted letting go of? Now, for me, that is something I'm really looking at a lot of my tools and going, all the tools that I've got that relate to being able to actually fix furniture. Why would I get rid of those? Because furniture is always going to be a part of no matter where I live. I mean, unless I lived on the road in a caravan or a four-wheel drive, which I actually am not sure I want to do just that. I have this desire to have both roots and wings. I always have desired to have a place that I call home, or not just desired to, I feel most comfortable coming back to my home base and then venturing off and exploring and spreading my wings and then coming back to where my roots have been laid down. So while I go through this process of uprooting myself and moving to relocate to place those roots back down again, do I necessarily want to get rid of everything that I truly value that contributes to my everyday living experience? No, I don't think so. And I also think it's going to be valuable when I'm setting up my new space, because I have considered potentially building tiny homes, and not just one tiny home, because one little tiny home is not going to be enough. I need a worker space as well, but potentially little pavilions. And I like doing handiwork like that. So I want to be able to take tools with me that will enable me to do that. And the furniture that I have acquired over the years are all beautiful old pieces of furniture that I have restored and painted or just made adjustments to make it suit the modern day use of the furniture. So having a space where I can do that is going to be really important. So I've been going through the house and actually trying to decide what needs to stay and what needs to go. And there has been a lot in terms of cookware. I love to cook, and so did my former husband. We actually bought this property with the intention of us living off the land. We raised our own meat birds. We also had a massive vegetable garden, and we have in the house, we have a larder, which we used to harvest all the crop and we would store them in there and then make preserves out of, like, chutneys and chili jams and chili sauce, and then all the seed tops of, say, coriander or fennel. I'd hang them up and dry them, and the garlic we'd hang up and dry in there, and then braid the garlic ends. But the seeds from the coriander, I still have coriander and fennel seeds that are hanging up in the larder that I actually pull off the seeds and I put them into jars and use the coriander seeds that came from our own garden. That to me is artisanal living. It is actually the day-to-day activities that we do that support our lifestyle that make it magical. And so I just don't, for me personally, think it's going to be possible to just live off on the road and in a small mobile dwelling that I would then just gather what I can wherever I go, because I like that connection to place. I like knowing that the herbs that I use to cook my dinner actually come from the land that I live on. And I make pestos out of whatever is growing in the garden. At the moment, what we've mostly got is sorrel that keeps self-sowing, but we used to get a lot of red mustard that would pop up as well, and I'd make red mustard pestos. And my youngest son and I, we eat pestos, tapenades. We have a savoury breakfast every day for our breakfast, and the greens come from our property. And I love that. I think that is something that I want to continue doing. If anything, I want to amplify, not necessarily to the scale of what we had when we were a family of four living here with all the animals and the large veggie garden, but enough to live off for me personally. So it is important to me that I do have a home base. and that I have the equipment that's going to support me in living the lifestyle that I value. And so that's why I guess that's why I really wanted to start this artisanal living playlist, to share that, we hear a lot about moving things on and paring things back to the bare minimum and not needing stuff. But this is not about stuff. This is about the way that we live. And if we are people who handcraft, and that can be from the clothes we wear to the items we gift to the food we eat, then it requires a lot of resources in terms of tools and equipment, and even the benches and the storage facilities. Like in the larder, I was going through and have already removed two sets of shelves because they were slimline shelves that were on either side of the sideboard, and in them were a whole lot of plates and cookware that, as a family of four, we would use them regularly. And some of them were even from the commercial space because I used to entertain there and host events. So we had a lot of crockery in the space, and even cutlery and cups. And so a lot of that stuff came back to the house. So I've been through that and I've moved on what I just don't need to hold on to. And but in the process of doing that, of actually removing those two slimline shelves, it made me realize how much I value the sideboard, the one that I painted orange and the hutch on top of it. I actually thought I would be able to move that on and just use my trestle shelves to store things, but I really like the functionality of the sideboard, and I fit a lot in there. And I have all of my recipe books in there, and as much as I love my trestle shelves, they are functional to a point. I did find when I was putting things like coffee plungers and coffee cups onto the trestle shelf, I was a bit unsure about whether or not things would fall off the back. So I was using timber boxes to do that. And the way that it is set up now is probably more like what I would also have living on my own, maybe with a little bit less, but I still will have my boys come and stay with me and visit, and spend weekends wherever I end up living. My boys constantly say, there is going to be a place for us to stay, isn't there? Of course there's going to be. I mean, I value my connection with my kids. I would never make it so it's difficult for them to come and stay for a weekend. But it's just thinking about these things as, how do we live and what do we value? And connection to self, connection to others, connection to wild nature, they are all things that I highly value. So I want my home, my next home, to be a place where I can actually share it with other people and have friends around for a meal and my kids at the same time, not just one or the other because I've only got two cups. So it's little things like that that I've just been really having to tune into what is truly important to me. And it's not even just what's essential. I actually started with the question of what's essential, and then I moved into the question, well, that's actually what's important. What adds to the magic of my life and what creates my everyday living experience in a magical way? And so that's my invitation to you, is to consider that for yourself. What makes your days magical? And do you actually need to eliminate that and pare things back to purely the essential? I don't think so. I don't believe minimalism, as in terms of going back to nothing, really supports our thriving, if and especially as artisans, where we make as a part of our everyday activities and what we value in life. When we make, we need more than just the bare minimum to survive, and we just don't need a backpack and a roof over our heads, that we can travel around in. I can't see myself doing that, and I'm guessing that may not be something you could do either, because if you're here watching this channel about artisanal living, then you're probably someone who also is multifaceted and multi-passionate and love to try new things. Like knitting was something that I took up when I moved down to this region, because I'm in a cold climate. Like I said, it's been -6, -7 degrees, and when I first moved here from a temperate climate, I found it very hard of a night time to warm up. So I started knitting basic things just to keep my hands moving, to keep me warm. Because I find when I've got my blood pumping, I find it a lot easier than if I'm just sitting stationary. So, I don't knit all the time. I'm not a knitter, but it is something that I've put my time and energy into understanding how to knit and how to work and what kinds of yarns I actually like to work with, like alpaca and fine merino and natural fibers that just feel amazing to wear. And so it's that's artisanal living. It's, creating what it is you desire, but not only to have stuff, but actually to fulfill your everyday living experience as well. And the process of making is a part of that. So I think I will leave it there. Like I said, this was not a video about telling you how to downsize yourself. It was more just to open up a conversation and to share. And especially if you're feeling any kind of guilt around having the things that you have and feeling like, I just have way too much stuff, I need to get rid of stuff. Yes, get rid of stuff, but be careful not to get rid of things because of the guilt associated with what you have, rather than looking at what you value and how it contributes to your living. Because if the stuff that you have is actually useful and you are resourceful in the way that you use it, then it's not just stuff. So enjoy your making, your designing, your dreaming, your creating of a life by design. That is really what artisanal living is about. It's living a life by design, a life that supports you in utilizing your gifts, your skills, your talents, and actually exploring with curiosity new ways, new things to do. And we're continually here to grow. And I will actually end on that note. We are continually here to grow. And when I bought these books, I did that with the intention not of just fixing one thing once, but knowing that that would be a continual ongoing thing that I would want to do. And so as that grandpa chair has started to fall apart, I could look at that chair and think, I failed that poor chair because I have not actually done what it needs done to it. Because over the years, I didn't take the grandpa chair into the commercial space. I left it here. But over the years, it deteriorating with age, the webbing, it's just a simple replacement of the webbing that it really needs. But I would like to do more than that when I do it properly. And I may not actually get to doing the full restoration here in this location, but I will fix the webbing very soon. And I will actually put the springs back into place and secure them so that it doesn't fall out while we move. But the actual full restoration, I have been looking forward to a time when I can actually dedicate more of my energy towards learning the skill of a full restoration. And so I don't look at that chair and feel like I've failed or I failed the chair. I look at it as yet another thing that I still have to learn in my growth and expansion journey, which as an artisan, I don't ever want to stop learning. There are so many things that I want to continue learning and trying. And so allowing ourselves the ability to give ourselves the time and space. I've spent the last 23 years as a mother doing what it needs to be done for my children, as well as trying to maintain my own sense of independence and individuality and keeping up my profession so that I could continue to grow and expand in that as well. So putting off doing that chair has not been because I failed. It's because I prioritize other things over it, but it doesn't mean I never wanted to come back to it. I bring that up because I was watching a video the other day about this and how if you've got things around the place that you haven't completed, then get rid of them because you're never going to complete them. And I looked at that chair and thought, no, that's not true. I have put the photo album underneath it for now to buy me time because I knew that when I had an empty nest, I would start doing the projects and completing things or following through with learning those skills that I didn't get time to do while I was supporting my children through their formative years and them getting them ready for their independence, and also supporting other women in the region through my commercial space who were mothers balancing motherhood and their professional identity, and doing what I was doing around here to contribute to us living off the land and creating a home I haven't put off fixing that chair because I'm never going to do it. It's just not a priority. It wasn't until I had the time. You can have everything you want, but you just can't have it all at once, is the motto that I've gone by. I can do it all, but not all at once. And some things just need to be put off. And so that has been a part of my downsizing process. Okay, so what did I set aside that I actually still want to do, that I will be able to do in that next phase of my life's journey? That's not failure. That's just learning how to prioritize and to be discerning. So I hope that this video has supported you in feeling less alone if you feel like you've got way too much stuff and you've got way too many interests. You don't. I mean, if you complete things, I mean, there are plenty of things that I have completed and seen through the full cycle, but there are still some things that I am yet to complete. And if that is you, you're not alone. Take the pressure off feeling guilty for things that you haven't completed or things that you have yet to learn that you haven't yet learned. We are here for a full journey of life, and we could live until we're 100. I could have another 50 years of playtime ahead of me. So I hope this video was supportive to you. And I look forward to hearing about whether or not this is something you have struggled with or something you have contemplated. And I look forward to connecting with you again soon.